Once upon a time, in a peaceful village, there lived a hard-working and honest farmer. He was known for his diligence and integrity, always toiling under the sun to provide for his wife and children. Despite his tireless efforts, his crops were withering due to a prolonged drought. The scorching sun had dried up the fields, and the streams that once nourished the land had disappeared. The farmer tried everything he could to find water, but his efforts were in vain. He knew that if he didn't find a water source soon, his entire harvest would be lost, and his family would struggle to survive. In the same village, there lived a wealthy and cunning man, known to everyone as a shrewd businessman. He owned a large well filled with fresh water, but he was infamous for his greed and selfishness. He never shared his wealth and always sought ways to exploit others for his own gain. The villagers often spoke in whispers about his unfair dealings, but no one dared to confront him. He was powerful, and people feared falling into his traps. The well he owned was the only reliable water source left in the village, making him even more influential. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, the desperate farmer decided to visit the wealthy man's house. He knocked on the grand wooden door, and after a moment, the greedy man appeared, eyeing him with suspicion. "Sir, my crops are dying, and my family depends on this harvest. Your well is the only water source left in the village. Please, I beg you, would you be willing to sell it to me?" The wealthy man stroked his chin, pretending to think. He saw an opportunity to make a fortune from the farmer's desperation. "Wealthy man, water is valuable, you know, but since I am a generous man, I will sell you the well. Of course, it won't be cheap." The farmer, despite knowing the price was high, had no choice. He gathered all his savings and handed over the money. "Farmer, grateful, thanks to all my stubborn crops will be saved." He walked home that night feeling relieved, believing that his troubles were finally over. Little did he know, the real challenge had just begun. The next morning, the farmer eagerly went to the well to draw water for his parched fields. As he lowered his bucket, a loud voice echoed behind him. "Greedy landowner, hold it right there. What do you think you're doing?" The farmer turned around, puzzled. "Farmer, I'm drawing water from my well. I bought it from you, remember?" "Really?" "Oh, you bought the well?" "That's true. But did I ever sell you the water inside it?" The farmer's heart sank. Farmer, shocked. "But what's the use of a well without water? I paid you everything I had." Greedy landowner, crossing his arms smugly. "You only purchased the well. You must pay me a daily rental fee." The farmer clenched his fists in frustration. Word quickly spread through the village. The neighbors gathered around, whispering among themselves. They sympathized with the farmer but were too afraid to speak up. After all, the landowner was powerful and influential. The farmer stood by the well, staring at the water that was rightfully his but now held hostage by greed. His fields were dying, and his family depended on him. But what could he do? Taking a deep breath, he straightened his back. "Farmer, if justice exists, I will find it." Without wasting another moment, he set off on a long journey to the royal court, determined to seek fairness from the king. The honest farmer, desperate for justice, arrived at the royal court. He bowed before the king and explained how he had purchased the well, only to be denied access to the water inside. The king listened carefully, then turned to the wealthy man. "King, is it true that you sold the well to this farmer?" Wealthy man smirked, "Yes, your majesty, but I never sold him the water inside." King, "So you claim the well belongs to him, but the water still belongs to you?" Wealthy man, "That is correct, your majesty." The king, unsure of how to rule on such a tricky case, called upon his wisest minister for advice. The wise minister arrived, assessed the situation, and then turned to the wealthy man. "Minister, so you confirm that the well belongs to the farmer, but you still own the water inside it?" Wealthy man, proudly, "Yes, that was never part of the deal." The minister smiled knowingly. Minister, "Very well. Since you claim the water is still yours, that means you are storing your property inside someone else's well. According to the law, if you wish to keep your water there, you must pay rent to the well's owner every day." The wealthy man's face turned pale. Wealthy man stammers, I can't do that." The minister's tone grew firm. "Minister, if you do not wish to pay rent, then you must remove all of your water from the well immediately." The courtroom fell silent. The wealthy man realized he had been outwitted. He had no way to remove all the water from the well, and paying rent for something he had already sold was absurd. Defeated and ashamed, he lowered his head. "Wealthy man, I apologize. The farmer may use the water." The king nodded in approval. Justice had been served. From that day on, the entire village learned an important lesson. Dishonesty may seem clever at first, but it always leads to downfall. True success comes from fairness and integrity. The wise minister's judgment spread throughout the village like wildfire. The cunning rich man, realizing he had no way to remove the water from the well, hung his head in shame. Defeated, he had no choice but to allow the farmer to use the water freely. The honest farmer, overjoyed, returned to his fields knowing that justice had been served. His crops flourished once again, and he continued his life with renewed hope and gratitude. The villagers, who had witnessed the entire ordeal, cheered for the farmer and praised the wisdom of the minister. They now saw clearly that dishonesty, no matter how clever, would always meet its downfall. The rich man, embarrassed and humiliated, never tried to deceive anyone again. The moral of the story: greed and deceit may bring temporary gains, but they will ultimately lead to failure and disgrace. True success comes from honesty, patience, and hard work. Justice may take time, but in the end, fairness and righteousness will always prevail. From that day forward, the village remembered this story as a lesson that no wealth gained through dishonesty could ever stand the test of time.